Now joining us in the studio to shed more light on the 5% fuel charge is, surcharge rather, is Dr. Akinsiju. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, beautiful. Let's begin by you painting a picture of what the surcharge, 5% surcharge is about.
Well, if we have to do a historical trajectory of the surcharge, we'll be going back to sometimes in 2003 when the federal government under the then President Olusegun Obasanjo scrapped the toll gates after the incidence of another increase in price of petrol. And of course, the exchange with the labor then, who was actually at the forefront of resisting fuel subsidy removal, was that the toll gates will be scrapped so that money is realized from the increase in petrol prices by a percentage of which will go into maintenance of roads. Of course, this was not realized, and over the next 4 years thereabouts, petrol price increased from 26 naira per liter to about 70 naira per liter. So by 2007, it was a high of 70 naira per liter. Eventually, there was that decision to have a specialized body responsible for road maintenance, and that was the Farmer that brought in the Farmer Act. And under the Farmer Act, a specific provision was provided for a 5% fuel surcharge to take care of funding, providing fund for road maintenance. Since 2007, that particular aspect of the Act had gone into redundancy, as far as many Nigerians are concerned. And the interesting thing is that it is when it was not even in on the front burners of whatever consideration that it just came out in public space. I don't think, some of us have been following these laws. I don't think there had been any sort of consideration, for its implementation. And I think the finance minister is very clear, on his submission on the possible activation of that aspect of the law. The law, all tax laws had been harmonized into four laws in Nigeria. And to that extent, it means that wherever any form of tax consideration is or is embedded would be ferreted out and, of course, be distilled into this four tax law. I think that is what they have done. The tax law also says specifically that the surcharge can only be implemented on the directive of the finance minister. So it is not just an act; it cannot be automatically activated.
You're saying it's not something that the federal government is considering, but there has been a lot of talk about this.
That's fine. I am surprised because I remember when the whole issues of the tax reforms was on the front burner. My organization did a lot of contextual analysis of the tax law, and we did a lot of research around it. And of course, when it was gazetted, we tracked all the provisions to know which ones will be activated in January 2026, as been announced. So there was no mention of the 5% surcharge, and to the extent that because it was conditioned, the law is specific. The aspect of that law is specific to put the responsibility for the activation of that surcharge in the office of the finance minister, and of course the extension of that is to say that the finance minister would have to be persuaded of the appropriate period, to even activate this.
Okay, now, according to 2021 OECD assessment, about 67 out of 71 countries surveyed imposed some form of fuel tax. What's the big deal in this?
Well, it's important. Of course, don't forget that there are jurisdictions across the world that are tax inclined. the Nigerian jurisdiction is not exactly a tax-inclined jurisdiction. It's just now that people are actually understanding the place, of taxation and the responsibility of citizen, in paying taxes. And of course, this has also been impinged on the fact that there had not been exactly a relationship of returned responsibility in the social contract between the government and the governed. But in recent times, we are getting to see in terms of enlightenment, in terms of commitment, a more robust relationship between the government who had made commitment to provide for social amenities, for infrastructures and all that. And of course, in return, citizens will start growing trust, and fidelity in government to the extent that they'll be able to, of course, to return what their own aspect, their own part, the duty of citizens in the social contract. So, it's also a peculiar situation for us because, again, any form of tax, the immediate reaction in the public space, in the fiscal space especially, is to have inflation, growth, So, but I think in the particular case of this administration, I know for sure that at the point in time, there were speculation, and in fact, there was actually an act in relation to the NCC, what they call the network tax. I think 5%. 5% tax on airtime, and there was a lot of resistance. There was a lot of discussion around it. Eventually, the president ordered that tax to be scrapped. And in my thinking as an analyst, what the president had done is to use that as a policy to start, of course, mitigating any possibility of increase in inflation rates. And a president with that kind of mindset will, of course, at this point in time, will not be considering any form of tax, knowing that, of course, it will impact even his own set target, of 15% for inflation rates in 2025. So, to a large extent, given the fiscal environment, I don't think it will be the government will be thinking of introducing that manner of tax at this time.
Okay, talking about set target, just I think recently the president said the country is able to achieve its non-oil targets, revenue targets. So what do you make of this development?
It's great news because when you put it in context, when the government cannot, of course, meet up with their targets, what it does is to borrow more, to go into the capital market where it is the case of local currency to borrow more. But where it is now announced that the federal government will be able to meet its targets, it's good news for Nigerians because what it also translates to is that it reduces the competition for funding, between the federal government or between governments and, of course, the private sector. And when that is done, it also reduces the cost of credit, to the private sector. Access to credit is also lower, by the private sector. And of course, we know what that implies in terms of cost of production. It translates to lower cost of production, since cost of credit is also would also reduce. So I think to a large extent, it is good news. It's not every time that we hear this.
Are we likely going to see less borrowing?
The president had made a commitment, and I believe we can hold him to that commitment to say that there will be no borrowing from local, and we think we need to emphasize that from local banks. Most banks are responsible. Most banks takes a large swath of our fixed income. Most fixed income instruments are the instrument through which the federal government raises fund. So there will be either there will be very, very reduced measure of that, or of course there will be none at all. So I think it's good for the economy because it's not just that. Some of us believe if there is a need to raise debt, as a means of building infrastructure, providing infrastructure, why not? But if there is no need, it allows, of course, the private sector to be more active. And when the private sector is more active, you are sure of job creation, because it talks to expansion of businesses, expansion of production lines, and no matter how a production line is expanded, there will be need for new hands, for new employments. And when there's new employments, it's also good figures, for the economy, as it were.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akinsiju.
A pleasure as always. Thanks so much.